Hello friends, welcome back to the next video of DBMS practical lecture series. In this video we are going to practice various examples of triggers and how we can apply the triggers before or after every insert, delete or update events in the database. So let's start, but in this video we are going to deal with the examples only, means implementation part only. If you want a detailed descriptions of every terms related with the syntax and triggers, then you can watch the practical number 22 and 21. The links are given in the description box. So let's start. Here we are going to work with employee table for this example, and this table comprises of 4 attributes as employee number, employee name, salary and department, and having 2 existing rows as employee number with 111 and with 222. So let's start writing the triggers. We are going to write the queries, all the queries with MS Word file, so that we can easily visualize them, modify and update them. So this is our structure of the employee table. We have already created the table and inserted 2 rows. So this time we are going to have employee number, employee name, salary and the department. So first trigger we are going to write is for the before operation of insert event. So here before every insert we want to check that salary, means the row we are going to insert is must have the salary as greater than 0, means the new salary, new dot salary must be greater than 0. Only then the record should be inserted to the table, otherwise record should be rejected. So for that let's write the trigger, then we will have detailed description for the other triggers. Create or replace trigger. Let's name it as employee / trigger 1, and we are going to we want to execute it before the insert operation on employee table for each row. Okay, so this is the this can be before or after, as we want to check this condition before every insertion transaction. So we are writing here as before. For insert we are going to perform this trigger, means trigger must be invoked for every row before the insert operation. Okay, and if you are skipping this clause for each row, then the trigger would run for, means the default is the statement level, then the trigger would run for one time only. Okay, now as we only want to check the salary, means we want to check the salary should be greater than the 0. So we are not going to have any, means we don't require any declaration section. We don't want to declare any new variable with this trigger. So we can just start with the execution section. For that you have to write begin, and here we want to check that if new dot salary is less than equal to 0, then we need to raise the error. Okay, and we will be raising the application error. So these type of application error will cancel the transaction, means if we are writing the trigger for the insert operation before insert, then it would cancel the insert operation and the row will not be inserted to your table. So we want to raise the error with error code as 20,000 and minus 20,000. So these error codes are the prefix codes and can range from minus 20,999 to minus 20,000. After that we can have one message that we want to display for if the condition is violated, then we want to display that salary should be greater than 0. Okay, this is the condition that we want to check, and this is the application error that would be raised. And then we have the end of if statement, then we have end of the trigger. So let's create, or we can say that execute the trigger. So the trigger is created successfully. So let's try to insert something with salary as 0. You can also write the procedures to insert values. So it would also be invoked for the procedure, means while if you are inserting the new row records with a procedure or with direct query, so it would be invoked for every insert operation. So here I am going to enter the record with employee number as 333, name as C, salary I am keeping intentionally as 0, and next we have the department as mechanical, ME. Okay, so here we can see that the row is not inserted, as we are getting the error that salary should be greater than 0, and this error was raised by the trigger system.employee_trigger1, and the trigger was invoked automatically by the database for this insertion transaction, and as the condition was not satisfied, we can say that the salary should be greater than 0. So we are getting the error, and the insertion operation is cancelled by the DBMS. So you can check, try inserting something else. So if we try to insert this row as the salary, means the condition is not violating, so the row is inserted successfully into the table. So you can check it by listing the table. So the row is successfully inserted. Okay, next let's again modify the trigger. This time we also want to perform some check before the update. So we are modifying the trigger for update operation as well, and this time we want to check that the new salary should be greater than old salary. Okay, we want to check that if you are updating the existing record, then the new value should be greater than the existing value. This condition we also want to check in the trigger. Okay, and we have detailed discussion about these new and old words in the previous videos as well. Just for the revision, as we have 3 events like insert, delete and update, right? So for insert operation, you are going to refer the new values only, means if you are inserting a new row, then we will be having new employee number, new e-name, new salary, new department. Okay, but if you are deleting an existing record, for deletion you are going to refer the old values only, means you are deleting the old record like old employee number, old e-name, old dot salary, old dot department. But if we have the third case of update transaction, in update transaction you are going to have 2 references, like one for the old value and another for the new value. Okay, so you can have 2 references, one for the older value while updating and another for the new value. Suppose you are updating the salary from 10,000 to 20,000 for a particular employee, then the old value would be 10k and the new value would be 20k. Okay, and we can put the conditions to check these update operations, that if we want that the new salary should be always greater than old salary. It should not be same, otherwise the update is meaningless. If we are updating a salary with the same salary or a lesser salary, so we want only the record to be updated with the greater salary or a increased salary. So you can put the another condition like this: if we are updating. So these are the fixed, we can say that keywords that you can use for the conditions also. If we are updating, if we inserting, if we deleting, so these are the fixed words that you can use. And we want the both condition to be satisfied, that if we are updating, then new salary, if we are updating and new salary is less than equal to old dot salary. Okay, so while updating, if we have these two conditions should be satisfied, as we are using and, then the error should be raised and this time should be greater than older one. We are putting the condition that the new salary, while updating the new salary, we have two conditions with and logical operator. Both conditions should be satisfied and new salary should be greater than older one. The first condition would be checked first, and if this condition is satisfied, if we are having salary as 0, if we are updating or inserting, this condition would be checked for both cases, for insertion, for updation. Then if the condition, if the salary is less than 0, then the trigger would cancel the transaction at this point only. Then this condition is not going to be checked if the first condition is satisfied. So we will be coming to the second condition, if and only if the first condition turns to be not satisfying, means if the salary is greater than 0, only then we will be checking for the second if condition. Okay, I hope this concept is clear. So let's try to replace the trigger with this new trigger. This time we are performing the update as well. So trigger is created. So let's try to update the salary of the employee, this new employee, with a lesser salary. This time we are going to update the salary. Set salary equals to 20,000, where E number equals to 20,000. Sorry, E number is 333. Okay, so let's try to update the record with a lesser salary, and this time the trigger is invoked as we are updating and we are giving the new salary as 20,000 and the older salary is 30,000. So we are getting the error as the trigger is invoked and it is giving the error that salary should be greater than the older one. Okay, we cannot insert a salary that is less than the existing salary. So let's update it with the 31,000. Okay, so the record, this time the record is updated successfully. So this is the new entry, the record is updated, but every time while performing update or insert, the trigger would be invoked automatically, and if the condition is not satisfied, then the transaction would be cancelled. Okay, so let's try to put some condition for the after triggers. Let's suppose we want to check for some after conditions, like so let's modify this trigger only. So this time we are writing a trigger with name employee trigger 2, and we want to check that if we are updating, inserting or deleting, for all cases we want to create the backup entry to a backup table. Okay, suppose this is our employee table and we always want to keep track. Suppose one record is updated or deleted, and we want to perform some audit in future, then we must have all those records are deleted or updated from a previous value, means we must have the backup of the older version, means older values, and all the deleted entries and inserted entries must be kept separately in another table as a backup table. So this time we are going to create a backup table as employee underscore audit to keep the backup entries. Okay, and this table would be created, or we can say that all entries to this table would be inserted automatically by a trigger. Okay, we are not going to update everything to employee table as well as to employee audit table. So every entry to the employee audit table would be made by the our trigger. So employee trigger, we will program the trigger to make entries to the audit table. Okay, if and only if the trigger 1's conditions are satisfied. Okay, so the after trigger would be executed only after the before trigger has raised no error. If before trigger has raised the error, then after trigger will not be executed. So let's modify this table, as we are going to have all the attributes as the employee table, but along with this we also want to keep the transaction date information, and also we want to record the transaction name. And transaction name can be insert, delete or update. So we want to keep entry for the date of the transaction, means on which date you are performing a particular transaction, like insert, delete or update, along with the employee number, e-name, salary and department. Okay, now remember one thing, if you are performing the insert operation, so we are going to insert the new values to audit table. If we are performing the update operation, then we are going to record the older values. Same is the case for the delete operation. If you are deleting some record, then we are going to have the older values for the audit table. Okay, because if the record is deleted from the employee table, we would not be having any access or any, we can say that, information about that. So we can keep a backup entry to the audit table. So let's modify the trigger this time. So let's create the audit table first, otherwise we are going to get the error. So the table is created with no rows. So let's modify the trigger. So this time we want the trigger to after insert. So let's do it for the insert operation first, and this time we also need the declaration section for declaring the variable as transaction name of type varchar2. Okay, begin, and the transaction, as we have only one entry, we are performing it for the insert operation only. So the transaction name is going to be insert. Okay, now we don't require these conditions. We require to insert the values, means if we are inserting a new row to the employee table, we want the entry to the employee audit table as well. So insert into audit values. To insert the date, we need to write system date, as the first entry is this system date. For this we need to write sys date, and next we have the transaction name, and transaction name is insert this time, but for next transaction we can have other names. And next we just need to create values for, means we need to make entry for the employee number, employee name, but as this is the insert operation, then we are going to have the new values. Okay, new dot e number, new dot e name, new dot salary, and last we have new dot department. Okay, so the trigger is complete. It would insert every new entry to employee audit table as well. Okay, but before this, trigger 1 would run. If the condition is satisfied, means if the trigger 1 has raised no error, then the trigger 2 after insert operation will insert the same row to the audit table with the date with and along with the transaction name. So let's execute this trigger 2. So the trigger is created without any compilation error. If you try to create the trigger but the table is not created before, then you will get the compilation error. Okay, as we have created the table, already created the table, so the trigger is executed without any error. So let's try to insert something. Insert into, or we can just copy the command. Insert into employee table. This time I am going to make the entry with employee ID as 444 and last we have the department, so let's take it IT. Okay, so we are creating one record to the employee table and the row is inserted successfully. So let's check the employee table. This is the entry for the new record. Employee ID with E number as 444, and let's check the audit table as well. So one entry is also created for the audit table, but with date and the name of the transaction. Transaction is created on 13th April and the transaction name is insert. Employee number was 444, name is this, salary is this, and the department is IT. And please note that if you try to use old instead of new here, so for insert operation you are going to get a blank value, because insert operation for a new record is not having any old value. Okay, so no older reference is existing. So if you try to write old here, then you are going to get null values for the audit table. These entries would be blank. Okay, so let's modify the trigger again. This time I also want to have track of the update operation. Means if we are performing any update of the existing record, that updated transaction or updated record must have the entry in the audit table as well. Means the previous values must be stored in the audit table, then the new values must be can be updated to the employee table. So this time if the transaction is update, we can have the new values entry to the audit table, but we want the older entries, then we need to put the condition. Means if we are inserting, then transaction name is insert, but if we are updating, then the transaction name is update. So for that you need to put the if condition, like if inserting, then transaction name is this, else transaction name is update, because we have the other event as update. So if we are not inserting, then we are updating, semicolon, and next we have end if. Okay, the syntax must be correct. So transaction name, if we are inserting, you can also check for updating. If updating, then transaction name is update, else the transaction name is insert. Okay, you can have the condition in both ways. Now if we are inserting, then we have to insert the new values, else we have to insert the older values. If we are updating, my requirement is to enter the older values to the table. Okay, so if we are inserting, then the query is okay, but if we are updating, else in the else case, if we are updating, I want to put the older values, like old dot e number, old dot e name. Okay, so this is the case. So if we are inserting, the transaction name variable is going to store the string as insert. For update operation, we have the transaction name as update, next we have the end if, and if we are inserting, then we are performing the insert of new entries, but for update we want to record the earlier entries, means the older entries to the audit table. Okay, so let's modify the trigger and replace the trigger. So the trigger is successfully replaced, or we can say that created. So let's try to update something. Let's list the employee table. So let's try to update this salary. Okay, remember that trigger 1 cannot be violated, means the conditions of trigger 1 must be satisfied. If I want to update the salary, salary should be greater than the older salary, that is 20,000, because we have not deleted that trigger. So update emp set salary equals to 30,000, where E number equals to 444. Okay, so the row is updated successfully. Let's list the employee table. We have updated the salary from 20,000 to 30,000 for this employee, and the record is updated successfully. Let's check the employee audit table whether we have the entries there or not. Okay, so we have another entry to our employee table, employee audit table, and with the transaction name as update and the date of the transaction, when the transaction was executed, with the entry of the older record, means we had updated the record from 20,000 to 30,000. So we are having the entry of 20,000 in the table. Okay, but instead of this, if you are writing instead of old, if you are writing new dot salary here, then you will be then you would have the entry of the 30,000 in the audit table, but we are keeping the track of older entries only. So let's update it again. This time I want to update it from 30,000 to 35,000. Okay, so let's update. So update is done successfully. So let's check the entries in the audit table. This time we are having the entry as 30,000 because the salary is updated from 30,000 to 35,000. So entry is stored for the older value as 30,000. Okay, so let's try to modify the trigger again, and this time we want to deal with the delete operation as well, or delete on employee for each row. And this time we are having 3 transactions, means we need to get a 3 transaction. So we need to use else if. For this you need to write ELS if, not ELSE if. Else if means ELS if. So else if we are updating, then the transaction name would be update else. Transaction name is going to be delete. Okay, so here if inserting, transaction name is insert, else if updating, transaction name is update, else if the third and the last case is delete, if deleting, the transaction name is delete. Okay, now let's check over here. If we are inserting, then we are dealing with the new values, but if we are performing update or delete, then we are dealing with the older values only. Means if we are deleting one record, then we cannot have reference for the new value, so we are referring the older values only. In that case also this else section will work. So if we are inserting, then insert the new values to the audit table. Else if we are updating or deleting, for both cases we need to insert the older values. So rest of the trigger can be same. So let's replace the trigger. Control C. This trigger would work for all 3 events, means for insert, delete and update. For all 3 it would work. So trigger is created with compilation error. I think I have made some syntax errors. I forgot to add then over here. So else if then, sorry, then should not be added here. If updating, then. Okay, so be careful about the syntax always. If inserting, then I forgot to add this then, that's why I was getting the compilation error. So else if updating, then. So let's execute the trigger again. So trigger is created successfully this time without any compilation error. So let's list the table first. This is our employee table, and this time I am going to delete this record. Okay, so delete from EMP where E number equals to 333. Okay, so I am going to delete this record, and the record is deleted successfully and trigger was invoked automatically. So let's try to list the table, as the table is having only 3 rows now. 1 row was deleted. Let's list the audit table entries. So audit table is going to have one more entry with delete transaction for the same date. This time we are having this record, means this record is deleted from the employee table, but we are having the entry in the audit table, and this entry is made by the trigger. Okay, we are not adding any record or deleting any record for this employee audit. It is automatically maintained on the back end by the trigger. So you can write n number of triggers for n type of transactions and for n type of processing that you want to perform on the database. So let's try to delete one more row. This time I am going to delete the employee number 444. So the row is deleted successfully and the employee table is having remaining 2 rows. Let's check the audit table. So audit table is going to have one more entry with another deleted record as 444 as the employee number, and transaction is delete. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you learned something from this video, and be sure about writing the triggers, that you are writing accurate syntax for the triggers, otherwise you will be getting the compilation error and the triggers would not be invoked for the tables. Okay, and you must use the if conditions for various condition, means for what condition you want to execute a different action, you can put if condition, and we can also have the switch cases with this syntax. So that's it for this video. See you in the next video. Till then, bye and take care.